Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC television podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And I'm your host, Aaron. How's everybody doing out there today in the radio world? We have a really good episode coming up for us today. We're going to talk about quite a few different shows as we move forward, and we're just going to really have fun with it today. Today's recommended viewing experience is On the Floor. Yeah, just any way you can. If you want to lay straight down onto the floor and listen while you stare at the carpet, that's fine. If you want to watch your ceiling fan go around and round in circles like my brain does every day, then that's fine too. Be sure to stick around for the end of the episode where I'm going to talk about a show that isn't exactly a show. So, let's go into that first segment and let's get right on into it. Alright everybody, let's get into it today. For our first topic, we're going to be talking about originals. So we're going to focus on first a Hulu original and then a Netflix original. And then we're going to go from there. We're going to talk about them, break them down a little bit. I'm going to explain why I enjoy these shows and why I think there's something that people should go check out and enjoy. And let's go ahead and start getting into it. So the first one is a Hulu original called Future Man. Now, I really like this show. And I don't say that just because it's a fun show and I enjoyed watching it. I say it because this show is funny, it's clever, the acting in it is amazing, as are some of the special effects, and it is overall one of the funniest shows I've seen in the upcoming years for all the things that are happening. It officially has a couple different seasons, and they're all on Hulu. There's 3 main seasons, and the third one just came out recently, and they all focus around this character called Josh Futterman, and it's this guy called Future Man, so you can see where that title comes in. Well, Josh Futterman, he's this janitor working at a science place, and he's living with his parents, and he plays video games all day, and he's just a loser, and it's rough. And as I go into this, and I say this show is for adults. If you choose to let your kids watch it, I can't stop you. But it is for adults. It does have pretty high rating, okay? And so there is, like, a couple of things that are a bit in question. There's definitely violence that happens very often. So, to let you know now, this is mainly a show for adults before we continue. Getting back to the show, though, the main actor is Josh Hutcherson. Alright, you may have known him as, I believe he was PETA in the Hunger Games. I don't really know what else he might have been in off the top of my head. I think he might have been in that movie, Bridge to Terabithia. That's a real sad movie. Real just dark, sad movie. But I think the Josh Hutcherson was in that. But he's in Future Man. He plays Josh Futterman. And it's just amazing. It's such a funny show. So, back to the premise. It's about Josh Futterman, who's a janitor. He works at this place, which is like a science facility, where they're testing a cure for herpes. And as they're working on it, he's cleaning up after them, and his life is just going really bad. And he has a favorite video game called The Biotic Wars. And he's playing it, and he's really enjoying it. And this entire first episode focuses on the idea of him beating the game, because they set up this premise where the game is unbeatable, and nobody's supposed to be able to do it. Well, of course, it's a TV show, he ends up doing it, he does end up beating the game, and when he does, he finds out that it was actually a super secret test from the future to find out who's a chosen warrior from the past. And whoever can beat it, or defeat the people in the game, is the one to save humanity against the biotic wars and all of these people coming in and killing people. So, he beats it, and these two people come back from the future, and just shenanigans ensue. They try to use him to try to save the world, and of course, he's not the guy they're looking for. They were expecting some big, macho, manly person to be able to actually fight and do all these things, and somebody who was smart, and they got Josh. And there's 3 seasons of the show with them jumping all around time, having fun, and it's just some of the most fun characters I've seen in a long time. Seth Rogen is a part of it. He comes in the 2nd and 3rd season, and he's hilarious. He's an executive producer on the show, which means you know that it's already going to be funny. And it's just amazing to watch and to hang out and listen to. So that's over on Hulu. There's 3 seasons of that. I highly recommend it to anybody that's willing to go check it out. It is now one of my new favorite shows moving forward, mainly because it's kind of got an all-around quality to it, where it's got humor, it's got action, it's got well-written dialogue, and I actually enjoy watching it. The effects don't make me want to gag like some of the TV shows do. It's just good, and I'm glad that Hulu put so much energy and money and commitment into a show that they didn't know if it was going to take off or not. And I give them that, that hurrah, that cheer for them. Another thing about the show is that it is insanely pretty. It is so well shot that it blew me away. That first episode has some amazing moments where you're just sitting there watching it and you don't realize that you're still watching a TV show because everything about it is so cinematic, movie-like quality. They have these amazing angles and the shadows and the way they play with light in the show. It all comes together and makes just something really enjoyable. And so I know most people that worked on this project had so much fun being a part of it, and they love it and they swear by it. And that very first episode on Hulu, that pilot, is actually directed by Seth Rogen. So, if you wanted to go out and check it out and see how it is, you can go ahead and do that. I'm sure Seth Rogen is extremely proud of this show because it is just so funny, and I trust almost anything he puts out there these days. So, if you like that kind of idea, if you like future sci-fi shows that are about comedy and action and adventure, I definitely suggest that you go check out Future Man while you can. It is over on Hulu, once again. And so that's the show from Hulu today. Let's jump over to the Netflix original. Now, this is one that you probably haven't heard about, or if you have, you haven't heard a lot about it. This show is called Lock and Key, which is a TV series that Netflix has produced. It is, I believe it's all of season 1 is on there now. Yep, it's about 10 episodes in this season 1. And it's interesting. I'll explain that as we go further into it. So, it's a TV show that was originally based off of a graphic novel/comic book written by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. Well, Joe Hill ended up working on the Netflix version of the show, and I say the Netflix version because there were 2 other companies pining to start using this show, and then both dropped the project for someone else. Hulu originally had the second pick at this show, and they turned it down because they decided they didn't want it. But then Netflix came back and decided, you know what, we're going to make it, and we're going to make it good, and people are going to like it. And so, it's different. Let's get into it. So, the basic premise is that after Rendell Locke is murdered at the hands of a former student, Sam Lesser, his wife Nina decides to move with their 3 children, Tyler, Kinsey, and Bodie, from Seattle to Matheson, Massachusetts, and take residence in the Reynolds family home. So basically, it's this family, the father figure and the husband has passed away. He was killed by a former student of his, and then the mother and her 3 children pack it up and they head to Matheson, Massachusetts. And while they're there, things get weird, and they're staying in their family home that was owned by their father, and they don't really know much about their father and things like that. And when they get there to this family house, they start realizing that this town knows them. The town knows of their father, and all these people around here are familiar with their family name. They know about the house, but they don't know any of them. And so it becomes this weird dynamic of everyone in the town knows exactly who I am and my family name, but I don't know them. But that's not the actual main plot. The main plot is that there's a supernatural, like, entity or, like, these things that are staying within the house, and there's these dozens of different supernatural events that are taking place. And the entire premise of the show is that when they get here, they start finding these little keys spread throughout the house. And the different keys can do different things. And one of the ones that they find, to give you an example, is you can turn it and then you can enter somebody's mind at whim. Like quite literally, you can go inside of their mind and see a physical version of everything that they think, their dark thoughts, their inner consequences, all of these different things. You can see it inside of their head if you put the key in the back of their head. And the entire time that that's happening, they are also in their head because they exist within their head, but you are also walking around, moving, interacting with things. And it's all very strange and odd, and there's a mystical aspect to it, and it's horror at different times, and the show is kind of all over the place. But, I really like it. It may be all over the place, and it's kind of frantic at times, because I don't think it knows exactly what it wanted to be yet in this opening season. I still think it's fun. It's a fun, supernatural, family-esque kind of adventure story where you don't know what's going to happen next. And I really didn't. There were parts where I was calling stuff out, and I was like, God, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. And I would get it occasionally, and I would go on hot streaks, but some of the major twists and turns never really saw coming, or never really understood, because sometimes it's completely out of left field that it catches you off guard, because there's one woman who's a recurring character who just keeps showing up, and you think you have her pegged for what she might be, but then she teleports to the Bahamas, and everything about it is different, and you have no idea what's happening anymore, so good luck with that one. Yeah, so that's kind of like the idea of where the show goes. And I really do recommend it, because it takes a little bit slow to get into it, and I think you do have to continue watching the episodes, but it is a mystery. And it's fantasy and drama, and it kind of wraps you up in everything, because you get invested in these three children's lives, because they're all having to find a way to cope with moving to a new city, and we've all seen TV shows or movies about that, but this time it's different, because not only do they have to cope with being and living in a new city, they also have to cope with the fact that they're unmasking and learning deep, dark family secrets, all while being hunted down themselves by a secret order that they don't yet know about. And so it's very fun and interesting, and it's just like a fun family show to throw on, because it's not really dark. There's not too many really, really dark aspects to this show. You could sit down and you could watch it with younger children and have fun and laugh at all the different things that are happening. But it can also, it gets rough. And there's moments later on in the show, like later in the season, where things do get dark and people have consequences. And I always love when shows have consequences, because oftentimes we see shows set things up and then nothing happens and nobody goes through with it. But for this show, there is a consequence. And one of our main characters ends up passing away. I'm not going to say who, but that's up for you to go ahead and look into later in the show. If you do get a chance to go check it out, remember this is Lock and Key over on Netflix. Alright, and this was originally, I think this was also based off of a comic book. Or Future Man wasn't based off a comic book, this one was entirely, my bad. So yeah, this one was entirely based off of a comic, written by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. And Joe Hill ended up being executive producer on the show when it finally came out. He was not originally for the first time it was being aired, but he was brought on for the Hulu one. Interestingly enough, though, when they did try to do the Hulu show, they filmed an entire pilot, and they cast the entire thing, and Hulu passed on it and didn't like it. And then it started getting passed around from different people, and it finally ended up at Netflix, and they only kept one actor, which I thought was kind of interesting. They decided to keep the, I believe it was the father who passed away. The one actor they decided to keep is not one of the main characters in the rest of the show. And I find that funny and amazing. So, remember, that's Lock and Key over on Netflix. And then the Hulu original was Future Man, starring Josh Hutcherson, directed by Seth Rogen. He's an executive producer on the project. And everything about that stuff is just fun and amazing. And these are two shows that aren't exactly... They're not breaking any molds, okay? They're not trying to win awards or anything. They're not trying to make themselves the hot new thing. They just exist. They're just out there for you to be able to go in, watch, and enjoy for yourself. And that's exactly what I do with these two shows. So, if you like them, go check them out. Go see it for yourself. And let me know what you think. Remember, you can tweet at the GSMC Twitter, because I am a part of that now. And so... when you do that, I'll be able to see if you guys go check out these shows that I'm recommending. And if you don't like them, tell me, and I'll find some new shows that you might like. So remember, Lock and Key on Netflix, and then Future Man on Hulu. We're getting ready to go into the break here soon, so I hope y'all enjoy the ad, and get ready for segment 2 as we come back for that. Because up next, we have themed shows, because today's episode has a theme. We'll talk about that when we get back from the ad. Thank you, and enjoy.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Alright everybody, welcome back from that ad. We're going to go ahead and jump into segment 2, but before we do, I want to remind everybody to stick around for the end of the episode, where I'm going to talk about a show that isn't exactly a show. Now, do stick around for that, but let's go ahead and jump into the second segment today. You see, I'm going to be talking about themed shows, because today's episode has a bit of a theme. I want to talk about great hosts, because this is my second time doing this podcast, and I have hosts of things that I like to live up to as I do this, but neither of those two people are going to be the hosts that I'm going to be talking about today, because these are shows that I love because they are, let's say, relaxed. These shows are just kind of dumb TV to throw on. And when I say that, I mean you want to be actively involved in watching, so you don't want this to be a background show, but this is dumb TV. And when I say that, you'll understand as I get into it, because the first show we're going to talk about is a show called Nathan For You. Now, Nathan For You was originally a Comedy Central show, and it was kind of this documentary style reality show host kind of thing, where this man named Nathan was the host of the TV show, and the premise is that he would go into different businesses, so like a flip-flop store, a restaurant, in different places, and he would set up systems to try to help them improve business. Sounds right. Sounds pretty normal so far, correct? Sounds like somebody creating a business to go in and help improve the quality of life overall for other businesses. Perfect. Normal. Everything's great. Then you meet Nathan. Nathan is this weird, off-putting, bad energy-giving kind of host. It was just funny to watch people interact with him, because he's this cold, dry humor with very reserved jokes, and all the time he plays things as if everything is so completely serious, and you don't know if the show is satire, because the entire time I was watching this, every single episode, one after another, I kept thinking that this show might be satire, and it kept crossing my mind, but they play it so entirely serious that you do not know. Because Nathan, the host, plays everything as if he is a regular everyday TV show host, and what he's doing is completely normal, but some of the ideas that he comes up with are so ridiculously outrageous that you can't help but understand that these are jokes, or that it's supposed to be comedy in some way, and they really play up on the is this supposed to be real kind of aspect. Because these businesses and things that he's going into, these are real businesses. But Nathan has created this host character where it's a different personality. Because he did interviews and things like that for the actual show of Nathan For You, and then he's done interviews as Nathan the host for businesses. And they're two completely different people. And it's amazing to watch and to see this and to laugh at these different things. So, the show originally came out in 2013, like I said, with Comedy Central. It has 4 seasons. It has 32 episodes. You can go watch it right now if you'd like over on Hulu. But I'll give you a couple of examples of some of the wild things he's done that have got people just kind of riled up in this show and really liking the different things. One of the ones that you might have heard of was in 2014 with the creation of something called Dumb Starbucks. Now, what this was is that Nathan went into a coffee shop and came up with an idea to create a knockoff version of Starbucks called Dumb Starbucks. And the idea behind it was to look so close to the original Starbucks in the logo and everything that people just think that they were a Starbucks. And of course there was copyright issues and different things, and for him to be able to do that had to be known as a parody artist. And in that episode he ended up making a parody TV show, or at least attempting to, so that he could be known as a parody artist for parody law, so that he could do that. And it never worked, and it was so funny. But he ends up getting this big business of a building called Dumb Starbucks, and it ended up being shut down after a while, but people thought it was art. People loved it. And people around the country in the area where that Dumb Starbucks came up, they thought it was hilarious. People thought it was an artistic movement, but it wasn't. It was just Nathan For You making a joke on a TV show, and it was extremely funny, and every single episode is like that. There's an episode where Nathan goes in and he's like, "Can I leave you my business card?" And the gentleman goes, "Oh, of course you can." And Nathan pulls out a turtle from his back pocket and just sits it on the desk with his business card taped to the back of the shell. And the guy looks up and he goes, Is this serious? Is this your business card?" And Nathan goes, "Yeah, if you wanna water and take care of him, yeah, that's my business card." And then he leaves. And so I believe somebody asks him about it later on, and he's like, "Well, if I give somebody a business card they have to take care of, then they're not going to forget it." And you know what? That's a good energy to have these days. The you're not going to forget me kind of energy. The wild wave of craziness that is 2020. Maybe turtle business cards are the new thing, and I'm not on the up and up anymore. Would you guys use turtle business cards? Is that a profitable business? How quickly do turtles become business size worthy? And does a bigger turtle mean bigger business? We're getting off topic. Go watch Nathan For You. It's on Hulu now. I entirely recommend it. The other show we're going to be talking about with amazing hosts. Now, this host is amazing. I love her so much. This is for a Netflix show called Nailed It. Now, if you haven't seen or heard anything about Nailed It, it's basically a cooking competition style show hosted by a woman called Nicole Byer and Jacques Torres, and they are amazing hosts. The main host is Nicole Byer. It's her show, but the chef host is Jacques Torres, and he is a chocolate connoisseur, I believe. He's just a man. He's a very well-renowned chef who has a specialty in chocolate, and he makes these amazing things. And he makes a lot of the example things that they use in the show because, unlike normal cooking style competition shows, they do not get professionals, chefs, bakers, people that know what they're doing. They specifically go out and look for amateur bakers. And they find people that either own their own small restaurants, or they find people that are like cooking in their own backyards, or they're cooking in their own small homes, and they have them send in videos of them cooking and baking. And it's always hilarious because it's these people that are just doing the best they can, and sometimes it turns out so horribly funny, and other times you watch them create these magnificent things, and then you get blown away by some of the things people try to get away with, because on the show, the idea is to make something amazing while they know you're going to be making bad things. So people try to make great things, and oftentimes their own hubris calls them out, or they just mess up the recipe in different things. The amount of times I've yelled at my screen for people to follow the recipe in the middle of a baking show astounds me. How do you not do that? I know that they have tablets in the show that shows the recipe, and they still don't follow it. They don't. Some of the competitors do. Not all of them. You can always tell which ones do. But anyway, so the show is extremely funny. It has 2 holiday specials. I believe it's a Halloween special and a Christmas special. And it's fun to watch and to listen to. Nicole Byer, who is the host, is so energetic. She's always at the top of her game. She's always bringing such life to the show because she herself is extremely funny, and she loves food, and she loves hanging out with Jacques. And Jacques himself, while being a professional chef, is also professional chef. He is also extremely funny. And the two of their, dynamics together is amazing. And usually they have a third guest or, a specialty guest that comes on, and they do different things and talk to that, and then that host is the specialty guest, and they also, have different things. And it's just really amazing. So, I'm scrolling through here, and I wanted to pull out one of the celebrity guest names that mainstream people might have recognized, but there's not too many that I can really... Felicia Day. Most people know about Felicia Day. She was in an episode. She was in a Marvel episode. Season 3, Episode 1. She was the guest judge on that. There's not too many other judges that I don't think people would recognize. Maya Rudolph. I forgot she was in that one. She's in one of the Christmas ones. I believe it's the holiday special Season 2, Episode 2. It's a Christmas one, and it has Maya Rudolph, and that's rad. It's good to see that she was a part of that. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head. I know there was a couple of other ones. There's actually one of the guest judges is a character from Future Man. Not the character, is one of the actors from Future Man. So that's a really cool crossover to see those two come together. But let's get back to the show. So, like I said, it's a cooking competition where they know everybody's going to do bad, and it is funny. They have a live manager or a stage manager, or what we call the UPM, the unit production manager, who keeps coming out time and time again. And his name is Wes, and Wes is hilarious. They use him, or Nicole uses him as a jumping point for jokes or different things, and so Wes will come out in different outfits, and it's always funny, and every episode has themed cakes, and it's always so interesting because they start the episodes with mini challenges and then the actual challenges, but every time they show what they have to make, or what they have to recreate, it's beautiful, it's hand done either by Jacques or by the different people that work on the show, and then the contestants just fail. And when you think they're going to get close, they fail. And when you think they're going to do great, they fail. Some of them do amazing, but it's so funny to watch the different people fall apart with the different types of pressure. And especially because nobody ever gets, sad. It's always, giggle to yourself kind of upset, and I just love it. So, that's the show. It's called Nailed It. It's on Netflix. It's a cooking show where you're meant to laugh and have fun. 4 seasons, 40 episodes. I absolutely recommend you go check it out. And then, of course, I recommend Nathan For You, which is that comedy show you can go watch over on Hulu right now. It's no longer running. Nailed It is still running. So remember, Nathan For You over on Hulu, which is that kind of weird cringe comedy where he goes in and offers extremely strange business advice to very normal business problems. And then there's Nailed It, being hosted by Nicole Byer. and that's over on Netflix, and that's a cooking competition where the goal is to be the best of the worst. Now, as we get ready to go into our ad break, I'd like to remind everybody to stick around for the end of the show, where I'm going to talk about a show that isn't a show. What could it be? What is it? Nobody knows. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get y'all set up for that ad read, and I'll see you after the break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hello everybody and welcome back from that break. Let's get into our third segment for the day, where we're going to talk about two shows that I really enjoyed watching this week as I went through and started checking out some of the things that I wanted to see. First off, we have the TV show version of What We Do in the Shadows, which was originally created because of the spinoff from the movie by Taika Waititi. And the movie is funny, it's interesting, it's about these vampires living in modern day society, but it's done like documentary style, and everything's very like realistic comedy, and it's funny, and it's up close and personal, and it was done extremely well. And then the TV show, in my opinion, pretty funny. It follows the it doesn't follow the same characters in the movie or the same plot and things of that nature, but it carries the same energy and the same vibe with it from the movie to the TV show. And when I say that, I mean it has the same kind of writing style, because Taika Waititi was on the original movie, and he's partially on the show. He's an executive producer. He shows up in a couple of episodes, but he doesn't have a heavy hand in things that are going down, as he did with the movie. But the people that he passed it on to did a fairly good job of making the show not only watchable, but enjoyable, because I feel like with a lot of shows that come from movies, you want them to at least be watchable, but you hope they're enjoyable. I think this one is extremely enjoyable. It follows a handful of characters. So we have Nandor the Relentless, who is this leader of the group, basically, and he was an ancient person who turned into a vampire, and he's lived for thousands upon thousands of years, and it's amazing. Now he's here in the present day. He didn't really evolve with the times, so he's still very much back in his old ways. And then we have Laszlo, who is an English vampire who lives in this house, and it's just a bunch of vampires living together in a nest, dealing with modern day problems and the like. And then we have Nadia, who is a female vampire, who she also lives in the house. And then we have their kind of like butler, because all of them have their own servants and things like that. And so Nandor has a servant called Guillermo, and he is a main character, and he's extremely funny in it, and it's just amazing. And then there's a bit of not really a main character, but another vampire in the coven called Colin Robinson, who's what's known as an energy vampire, and anytime I see Colin Robinson come on screen, I know that it's going to be one of the funniest bits in modern-day television. And I say that because Colin Robinson has some of the most reserved humor I have ever seen. And when that character walks out, and he starts draining the energy from every single scene, the layers upon layers of comedy And this just this idea of we know it's funny because we know what we know, and that's that dramatic irony coming into play. It's so funny. So basically, the energy vampire for Carl Robinson is he can take energy from others by being as passive-aggressive or annoying or as draining as a person can be in real life. So he works in a cubicle. He is surrounded by office people all day, and then he comes home, meets other vampires, and then he stands there and he goes, "Hey, are we all, we just gonna stand here? I'd like to go play badminton if you're up for it." "Oh wait, you can't. Go outside. I'll go play alone. You sit there and do nothing with your lives." And it's so funny. And he's just roasting half the people he sees. And he ends up meeting another energy vampire later down the line, and their entire connection and episode is hilarious. And I entirely recommend it for his character alone, but the other characters are also extremely funny. I can't really reveal much about this plot because it spoils quite a bit, because this show is also one of those ones with progressive story instead of everything's wrapped up and safe by the end. But there's a lot of bits with, like, the afterlife and ghosts, and there's werewolves that show up at one point. They have to duel off with a pack of werewolves. They have this big vampiric council they have to answer to at some point during the show. And it's all of these things coming together to create this show, What We Do in the Shadows, as a modern-day documentary style of comedy. And it's done so beautifully. I genuinely enjoy it. I know a lot of other people out there weren't too big fans of this show. It originally aired on FX, and it's still running. And I really like it. And I think that if more people gave it a chance and got out there and actually watched a couple of episodes, they might also like that reserved, held-back comedy. Because people love, like, The Office, people love Parks and Rec, and What We Do in the Shadows is just a more hard push in that direction. And then they threw in vampires for it, just so that they had a setting for something to frame it around, a framing device. And I think that they do it amazing. It's extremely funny. The first season is 10 episodes, or, hang on, sorry, I want to make sure. It's a little bit more than that, okay. So it's a couple of episodes, and it's just extremely funny and enjoyable, and I think everybody should go check it out. So that's What We Do in the Shadows. You can currently go watch that on Netflix if you would like. And then another show I'm going to talk about that I watched this week. This is a bit of a weird one, and a throwback for sure. This is a children's TV series originally aired from 2005 to 2008. You probably heard of it. If you haven't, you've at least seen the toys that have spawned from this TV show. And that's Ben 10. I'm going to let that sink in for a moment, as you understand that I've spent part of my life this week watching and researching Ben 10. And I regret my life choices, and now that that's sunk in, we can move on and talk about the show. So, if you have seen the show, I don't know what you particularly remember, but I'm just going to go ahead and read out the synopsis for the show. So, it's about Ben Tennyson, who's a 10-year-old boy on summer vacation road trip with his cousin Gwen and their grandfather Max, and what they're doing is they're traveling around the world, or not the world, they're traveling around the country in their grandfather's RV, and they keep encountering all of these weird alien things. They find supernatural things, and the first time they all go out together, Ben finds a watch from space, and that watch jumps up onto his wrist, and it latches on and seals tight. And that watch lets him transform into different alien life. Now, excuse me. This show has been out for so extremely long. That's about 15 years ago, because that was 2005 when the original one aired. And this show had a following. Oh, it had so many people behind it, because they had the original Ben 10 in 2005, they had Ben 10 Alien Force in 2008, Ultimate Alien in 2011. Omniverse in 2012, and multiple movies spawned for this. And this was all originally by Cartoon Network, and they loved this show. And they put so much time and effort into this, and there's multiple films about this. And I know that there's another movie coming out soon called Ben 10 versus the Universe. And that's set to come out in 2020. Or did that get pushed back again because of everything else happening in the world? I don't know off the top of my head, but that was set to come out. And so I started watching the show again. Recently, because it's on Hulu right now. The original one, the 2005 TV series that came out. And I gotta tell you, it irks me a little bit. Because I always had this fond memory of this TV show. Because I didn't exactly grow up with this TV show, but I remember seeing it, being around it, I remember watching it here and there, and really being into it whenever I saw it. And I remember that there would be streaks of time when I could go and see this show on air, and I would watch episode after episode after episode and be extremely into it, and then I would get lost and I would disconnect from the show, but I always remember it being extremely good. So when I came back to it, I kept that kind of energy and that attitude when I went into it. However, I was also on guard because it is an old children's cartoon animated TV show. And I have to be honest, it does not hold up as much as you want it to. It is still extremely fun. It looks entertaining. For me, the character of Grandpa Max especially resonates with me because he's always funny and he's always on the top of his game. He knows what's going on. I hate Ben. Gwen is okay. This is one of those shows where I'm like, the main character is a tiny jerk, and I'm not a fan of him. He's just so sassy, he's mean to everybody he meets, but I guess that's the point of character growth, is that he's supposed to get better as the show progresses. And as of right now, he hasn't yet. I'm only about maybe 5 or 6 episodes still into the show again, but it holds up okay. It holds up like wet bandages will hold on a balloon. It'll stick to them, but if you pop it, there's a chance everything will fall apart. And I really do enjoy it because it's fun, it's interesting, it's a really cool premise of a young person gets this watch that can turn them into different alien life, and they get to keep traveling the country with their grandfather and cousin. That's amazing. That's something really cool to think about. The actual show in practice, they play really heavy into Ben's whininess quite often, and he himself is just not that great of a main character. He gets better as you go on, but honestly, the first season, rough to get through. It genuinely is. But I'm going to keep holding it out, and I think that the more I watch it again, because I want to rewatch it all, I think the more that I watch it, the more I'm going to enjoy it, because as of right now, I don't really remember much of the plot, I don't remember much of the background or the exposition, all the things that I enjoyed about the show. Right now, it's just 3 characters traveling in an RV that I know very little about, and so as I do start to learn more through that season 1, I think I'm going to start re-liking the show again. And then as we move into the other bits, I think I'm going to start really, really enjoying it. So, I managed to get a couple of those episodes out this week. And if you want to go watch it and check it out, you can go check it out on Hulu right now. That original Ben 10 is there. You can go ahead and watch along with me. I'm going to be watching some more this week. I don't know how far I'm going to get because I have a very busy week this week, but that's okay. I'm still going to do my best to see some more because when I was a kid, I loved this show. I genuinely did. And nowadays, I really want it to get better. So if I know that if I hold out and I keep watching and I force myself to get past that first season, I'm almost certain it'll be okay. Almost. So remember, that's Ben 10. That's over on Hulu if you want to go give that a watch. If not, I do not blame you. I'm only doing it because my mind is curious and I want to reminisce about this show and talk more about it as we continue on. But for right now, it is rough. Still, it is hard to keep watching. And I know it gets better, because I do know it gets better, and that's the only thing keeping me going, but as of right now, it hurts, and I do not want to keep going. But that original show had 4 seasons. Each season had 13 episodes, and I think I'm about halfway through season 1 right now. I can't wait for things to pick back up again. That's all I gotta say. I can't wait to get into the heavy stuff. I want Gwen to learn magic. She learns magic. She hasn't done it yet. Ben is just sitting there being rude to everybody, and it's not fun yet, but it will be. So, segment, we talked about What We Do in the Shadows. You can find that over on Hulu. That's a Hulu original. And then you can also watch Ben 10 on Hulu if you feel like it. That's only if you feel like it. You don't have to. I do not recommend Ben 10. I recommend it if you want something to just watch. Not really entertain. Not really background noise. If you want something you just want to watch, then do Ben 10. Because if you make it past that first season or 2, you're really going to get into it. And I genuinely do think that if you put yourself up to it like I'm going to do, that it will get good again. Because I know for a fact that the show gets good. It had Emmy nominations, and I believe it won a couple. And so, yeah, it won 3 Emmys. And so, I know it gets good. And I'm so excited for it to get good. But for right now, I do not recommend Ben 10 unless you want something to just watch. I do recommend What We Do in the Shadows over on Hulu. Now, I'm going to get you all ready for that ad break and prepare for our 4th and final segment, which is That Show That's Not a Show. So, if you're excited for that, stick around after the ad break, and I'll see you then.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Hello everybody and welcome back from that ad break. Welcome to the final part of our show today, where I've been hyping it up all episode. I'm so excited to talk about it. We are going to be talking about a show that isn't exactly a show. And what I mean by that is that it's not on stereotypical streaming services, but I would consider this a show. It's not exactly a TV show, but it is a show. You see, what I'm going to be talking about today is something called Binging with Babish. Now, this is a YouTube cooking show produced and made by a man named Andrew Ray, who I'm going to be referring to as Babish from now on. And it's this cooking show where he goes in and he picks different meals or different dinners, breakfast, lunch, different foods from different TV shows and movies, and he recreates them in real life. So he picks very popular ones, like he's done a couple of like SpongeBob related ones, like he's made a Krabby Patty before on the show, and he's made things from 30 Rock, and he's made calzones from Parks and Rec, and he's done all these different TV shows and movie dishes, and it's amazing, and I love this show. This is probably one of my favorite things to watch when I go on YouTube, and I have a cooking book from him that I've bought because I'm so in love with this show, and I feel like not enough people in the TV world are aware that Binging with Babish exists. So that's binging spelled Binging with Babish, Babish. So, go check it out. Go take a look for yourself as I'm talking. See the different episodes that you might want to watch, or bookmark different things you like, because I promise you, he has dozens upon dozens of recipes, and there will definitely be something that you're looking forward to making with him. And I guarantee it, because I've looked at it. He makes burgers so often, and he makes like fun things from TV shows. There's recently an Avatar one, because there's Avatar, the TV show that I'm really into, and he made Fire Flakes from that, which is basically like he made closer to Frosted Flakes out of flaming hot Cheetos, which is entirely impractical and sounds extremely painful, but he genuinely liked them. And so he's so fun and energetic, and there's this style that Babish brings to every single episode, because it started out in his original home apartment in New York. It was a very close, warm feeling. He played music from Seinfeld. He talked about the chef. And it really brought me in the early days of his show. And I've only grown with him as he's gotten bigger, and I've watched his channel grow. And so as the actual cooking show has gotten bigger, he's added new sections, because it was originally just the Binging with Babish, but now he has entire segments called Being with Babish, Basics with Babish. I especially recommend the Basics with Babish, because while Binging with Babish, which is his main show, focuses on film and television food, Basics with Babish actually focuses on a lot of the fundamentals of owning and cooking in your own kitchen. He talks about knives and the best way to take care of them. He talks about different foods and utensils you need to have. He does an episode about mac and cheese and teaches you multiple ways to make mac and cheese that dozens upon dozens of different people will love. He does pasta in more ways than one. In one episode I recently watched that basically kind of revolutionized how I'm going to start cooking from now on is called the One Pot Pastas, where he cooks all of his food, his meat, his pasta, all in a single pot in different ways, in different modes. And I think that's really going to be my future from now on. Everything I eat, one dish. Don't have to clean anything else. Don't have to worry about it. Babish taught me that. Now, I wouldn't bring it up if I didn't think that people would enjoy this show. And I definitely wouldn't bring up if I didn't think people wouldn't get something from this or learn something from this. So, he not only entertains you and brings people in with this amazing environment that he creates inside each episode, he also teaches you how to cook. He teaches you about recipes, about different things, and he always does it with such an attitude of helpfulness, because the actual person behind it, Andrew Ray, he's talked multiple times on the show about how he struggled with depression and coming to terms with his own troubles and fears in life, and you really feel that closeness and that compassion in every single episode he makes. And so I just genuinely enjoy watching these episodes and the different things he puts out each week or every couple of weeks. And you really get so invested that you not only want to watch the Binging with Babish, you also want to watch the Basics, and then you also want to watch Being with Babish, because sometimes he goes out and he does extremely fun things with his friends around food. And you not only fall in love with the videos, you fall in love with Andrew Ray. And you just enjoy watching it. And I promise you, if you watch television, if you watch film, he has done a dish from a show or a movie that you have heard about. If I'm reading off a couple right now, I can show you, I can talk about a couple as I'm scrolling through. He's done key lime pie from Dexter. He's done the croque monsieur from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I believe Captain Holt shares that with his husband. And so he does all these different things. He just recently put out a Lord of the Rings special where he does multiple different foods, and he does an entire layout of Second Breakfast, if you're Lord of the Rings fans, and he does this massive spread of food. And most of the time while he's doing things, he's also raising money for different charities. He's trying to help people in his local area. He's donating money to a bunch of places. I believe most of the profits from his second book went to hurricane relief, because he decided that all of the profits from that book were going to go and help people instead of letting it just go by. I don't know if that's exactly where he put the funds, but long story short, he helps people. And he uses these shows and the revenue he makes from making these shows to help other people. And it's just so amazing to watch. I get hungry every time he makes them, and I go in and I'll find myself watching hours after hours of this show. And before I know it, I've spent 5 hours watching 10-minute episodes when I can't even get through 4 episodes of a normal TV show sometimes. And it's the short format, it's the quick rush of this food, that looks interesting, that's my favorite TV show, I recognize that, followed by Andrew Ray's smooth, relaxing voice. He does all the narration himself, he does the editing for the videos himself, or I believe he has another person who helps him now because he just recently got bigger. He's actually in the process of moving because his channel has grown so much that he's been able to afford a house in a new set. So if you do enjoy what I'm talking about and you want to go check out this new show, you can go over and watch a couple of new Binging with Babishes or the different things. I believe he put out an episode just a couple of days ago with a burger from Parks and Rec called the Paunch Burger. It was this tall monstrosity with onion rings on it and chili fries. It looked like a heart attack on a plate. But it smelled, or I didn't get to smell it, but it looked like it smelled delicious. And I wish upon wish that I would have been able to try it, as I do with every single episode he makes, because you get heartbroken half the time sitting here watching the different things he makes, because you get involved and then you get to never ever have it, and that's where your heart breaks. But here's the interesting thing. When I say that you don't get to have it, I mean you don't get to have his. But every episode and every time he makes something, he's not only just showing you how he made it, he writes down the recipe and he's teaching you how to do it. And then if you go to his website or if you check in the descriptions of the videos, you can find links to exactly how to make it with every single step-by-step direction. So if you find something from a TV show or movie that you think you would really enjoy making at home, you can immediately go get all the list of ingredients, write things down, and then come home and cook it yourself. And you can either follow along to the video if you'd like, or you can just make it at home with friends and family you enjoy that have seen it, or you can show new people and learn it all together at the same time. I know for most of his Basics with Babish, which is the one where he teaches people how to cook, oftentimes, if he airs an episode that next weekend, he'll do a live stream where he will on-stream live cook the food he made so that he can then teach everybody how to make it and answer any questions people might have had about that video and that specific kind of food. So, like, to use for example, he made mac and cheese over on Basics with Babish. That next weekend, he would then live stream himself making the different types of mac and cheese, and then if anybody had any questions, if they wanted to change anything or follow along, they could do it right there with him. And I think that it's amazing that in today's society of constantly having these new places to stream and to do all of this, he does it on YouTube. It's just a basic YouTube channel. And it's not YouTube TV. You can just go and watch it and search it now for free. And just enjoy it. I don't know how many episodes he has, or how long particularly he's been doing this. I know he's been doing it for quite a few years. but there are dozens upon dozens of different episodes. It looks here that the original channel started sometime in 2007, and then the first ever binging show was posted in 2016. So he's been around about 4 years. 4 long years of amazing, delicious food. And I'm so excited to see where he goes in the future, because his channel is only getting bigger. He is currently putting out a new kitchen set, because he has never put out kitchen utensils before, other than like small things. Like he put out a pizza peel for sure, and because he does pizza quite often, and he put out a couple of spatulas and things like that. But he has recently announced that he is going to be selling full kitchen sets of pots and pans, sets of knives, a pizza stone and a pizza peel. And so it's amazing that this tiny little show went from being in this small apartment in New York to becoming a full-blown show with its own cookware set from just being on YouTube. And I know that people such as like Martha Stewart or things like that, they pine to end up in a place to be selling their own cookware. And Andrew did it on YouTube, just from making fun, interesting videos that he thought people would enjoy. And genuinely, I do. And so I full-heartedly recommend that you go watch Binging with Babish. I recommend that you Binging with Babish. I love Andrew to death. It's a goal of mine to meet and to talk with him, because he is so in love with television and film, and I'm so in love with television and film. And I want to talk to him about things he likes, and I want to talk to him about food and cooking. And if you enjoy any of those things, I highly recommend you go check it out. Even if you don't, if you just like movies and TV shows, it's still fun to go see the different things that he makes. Because I know I showed somebody Ratatouille, because he made a Ratatouille from the movie Ratatouille with Remy the Rat. And they thought it was hilarious. They thought it was so funny that somebody would try to make that meal from the movie. And that's the basic premise for the show, is wouldn't it be cool if somebody made our favorite foods from our favorite movies and TV shows? So, once again, that's Binging with Babish. It's over on YouTube. You can go check it out now. He has 7.6 million subscribers, and he's about to put out a full new set of kitchen cookware. So, once again, Binging with Babish over on YouTube. I really hope that you all go give it a check out and go see it for yourselves, because it is just something I so genuinely enjoy with my full heart, and I just want more people to be able to see it and interact with it and have fun with it. So, go give it a look. Let me know what you thought. We're going to go into the outro, and I really hope you all had a good day. Thank you. All right, everybody, thank you for listening to the GSMC Television Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And I would like to once again ask everybody to go check out our social media, because we are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're also on Instagram. Go give us a follow if you haven't already. And if you do, why don't you go ahead and tweet at me. Let me know what you thought about the episode. Tell me if there's anything you're interested in the next couple of weeks. And go ahead and let me know. I want to hear from you guys moving forward. I want to hear what you're into so I can start talking about some things. I'm thinking about opening a new segment where I take in audience-suggested TV shows. And we'll talk about them. And I'll get people's personal ideas about those shows and things they like, so that you guys have a say on to what you're hearing and listening to, and maybe even figure out some things that your audience members might enjoy that you didn't even know about. So thank you once again for enjoying the show. If you did, go leave a like, go check it out on Twitter, do all these different things. Thank you, and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.